Radio 1 FM 90.
Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. An extra hour of analysis and discussion of the topical issues of the week. Brought to you by Housing Finance Bank, a financial institution regulated by Bank of Uganda. Housing Finance Bank, we make it easy.
Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us for this edition of Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. This being a Friday, we review the major events of the week. Today we'll be looking at the new wave of sanctions. Now this week, the UK government announced sanctions against the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, and two former ministers, Dr. Mary Goretti-Kitutu and Agnes Nandutu. Now the sanctions are under the UK Global Anti-Corruption Sanctions regime that has been rarely used. Now the sanctions involve a travel ban and freezing of their assets. The government has responded to this development, saying that both Agnes Nandutu and Mary Goretti-Kitutu remain innocent until found guilty by Ugandan courts. It also says it's the very system of the government of Uganda that unearthed the accusations that are being leveled against them. The government also says there is no rationale to sanction Speaker Anita Among, who has never been charged by the office of the DPP. In Parliament today, Speaker Among indicated that the sanctions have no effect because she's not dying to travel to the UK. She actually said the only visa she needs is to Bukedea and Buyende. She also said that she has no properties in the UK that can be frozen and challenged the UK government to take action against any such properties if they're there. Now, the debate in the House took a trend where the sanctions were looked at as a part of the wider Western world attack on Uganda for passing the Anti-Homosexuality Act. Now, the United States has already sanctioned several government officials over human rights violations. Its report, which was issued like 2 weeks ago, has also accused government of orchestrating human rights violations and detaining its political opponents without trial. Now, in both cases, the government, through the international minister, the international affairs minister, Henry Okello Oryem, international relations minister, said that Uganda is tired of being lectured on human rights issues. Now, the National Unity Platform Party, through its leader, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, has welcomed these sanctions. Ssentamu yesterday addressed the media and chest-thumped, saying that these are fruits of his tireless work abroad. So we'll be asking a question: where do these sanctions take us as a country, and should those who are being sanctioned have any fear, or they can stay at rest because, like they said, they are not dying to go to the UK at all. But one other thing to note, Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi has suggested that these sanctions be extended to those who want to take their children abroad to study and those who want to go for treatment abroad. Well, we'll be looking at that issue in detail. Today is Press Freedom Day. Now, today, Ugandan journalists and the media fraternity joined the rest of the global community to commemorate the World Press Freedom Day. The day was proclaimed in 1993 by the United Nations General Assembly, and we have marked the day today under the global theme, A Press for the Planet, Journalism in the Face of the Environment Crisis. This is the theme to highlight the crisis and the role or importance of the media and journalism in shaping solutions to the impending global disaster. It's envisaged that the media should be free to do its watchdog work and highlight the challenges in this particular sector. Now, Uganda is among many countries where the environment is at risk, with encroachment on eco-sensitive areas, massive cutting down of natural forests, among others. In all these, journalists have faced threats, and some have been jailed. For example, there are journalists who had gone to cover the cutting down of Bugoma forests. They were arrested not so long ago. The other challenge the media practitioners face need to be addressed, mainly include impunity from those who do not want their excesses documented and reported. We'll be looking at those two issues during the rest of the 2 hours. I have 4 panelists. Honorable John Eresu is an economist, former Kaberemaido County MP. He comes from the NRM party. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us, Honorable John Eresu. Quite a long time, ever since you were on this platform. It's always a pleasure to have you on this show.
Kenneth, I've been here maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, but I'm glad to be around. And I want to say to all the listeners that good evening, and I think we shall interact very well in the hope that we come with fruitful discussion.
All right, thank
and
you.
I also want to extend my thanks to all the panelists who are here, so that I think we shall have a fruitful discussion for the benefit of our people and the country as large.
All right, thank you very much for making time to be with us. Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party, good evening and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, listeners. Good evening to my fellow panelists, eminent gentlemen. Pleasure to be here.
Imam Idi Kasozi, lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda, member of the Justice Forum Party, JEMA, a farmer. Imam Idi Kasozi grows delicious pineapples. How are you, Honorable Imam Kasozi, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
I'm not honorable. I am Imam Kasozi.
Honorable is just an expression of somebody.
No, for our case, it means the people who have acquired, who have entered the big house. But these days, I even hear local council
Councillors
calling themselves the honorables. People who are in general assemblies of different institutions also these days call themselves honorables. I don't know whether it has been demystified or the rules of the game have changed.
I use the word honorable in the real sense of English.
Okay. English. No, you see, you must be very careful. Somebody said we should boycott Premier League, but he wrote in English. He said boycott English Premier League, and he wrote his complaint in English. He should have said we should also boycott English.
No, I saw the Honorable Bahati went for a function saying I'm not wearing a tie because I'm protesting at the British, but he traveled to the function in a
British made car.
In a British made car, in a suit. I wish he had gone in back clothes.
And he was
and
he spoke English.
And speaking English.
But you see, that is because of the effect of colonialism. That colonialism has eroded the concept of our own negritude to the extent that we think that you can be what you are when you are not what you are.
You can be what you are when you are not what you are.
Because colonialism washed away.
What he's saying is that we lack confidence. It is only those people who are confident with what they have that will succeed. The rest are just mere conjectures. Okay, good evening, viewers, listeners, and all those who are following this program.
Thank you very much for joining us, Imam Idi Kasozi. Our fourth panelist, the Honorable Stephen Mkitale Wirawa, economist, former Blissa County MP, proponent of national dialogue. Honorable Stephen Mkitale, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Spectrum special viewers and listeners. Nice being here with some freedom fighters who do not use guns and bullets to defend their country. And indeed, Honorable Eresu and Imam Kasozi have been at this for long. Sometimes people ask, but how much are you paid when you go for those programs? It is, in Uganda today, people think everything you have to be paid. The servant leadership, volunteering for your country, the patriotism, which doesn't require to be on a payroll, which doesn't require to be coached in Chankwazi, is what we need. But this week, for today being a Fresh Freedom Day, when we have also this week celebrated the Labor Day, I want to congratulate the employers and the workers, and also those who train the workers and employers in terms of the education system, having got holidays this week. We want to congratulate them. But I was thinking aloud and saying, what a difficult task for us to transform this country. If every kid goes to school on average and coming back at 20,000 in a day scholar, and there is no mass public transport for such people, the cost of education is largely informed by failure for us to provide what is the obvious. Because ideally, if we had an organized housing system, schools would be within those housing systems, public transport, and therefore the cost of doing business in the country could be brought down, and then we could be talking of transforming the country. So I was thinking aloud, I says, those who want to go into leadership, are they aware of these bare problems that we have failed to provide the basics? I was getting an invitation from old friends in Tanzania to see the standard gauge rail, to see the new water transport, to see how they have they are getting these fundamentals which bring cost of doing business. And I said, I wish those who are vying to be leaders in this country are aware that we may be, the train may have left us for the takeoff in the region.
All right.
I just wanted to add on to him. The 2 points he has mentioned are very pertinent. One, I want to give a historical perspective of Uganda. In 1968 was the first time I came to Kampala. I don't think any of you were alive. And 1968.
I only came in 83.
And that time when
I was 9 years old.
Yes, you were 9 years old. Now, when I came to
But
Kampala,
the man was coming to Kampala.
I was coming to Kampala
Probably was
for Senior 1 education at St. Mary's College, Kisubi.
Oh.
And when we came by bus up to the bus park,
No.
which used to be, and now it is a
Mukwano
Mukwano Arcade, we arrived around 5 a.m. in the morning from Soroti, an express bus. And immediately there were buses, city buses, under Uganda Transport Company, charging 1 shilling, and we were taken up to, I went up to Kisubi with someone who had brought me. When I was at St. Mary's College, Kisubi, the first term went on, we paid school fees of 200 shillings a term, upon which we never ate posho at school at that time. And later on, the second term, when it came, the Teso local government gave us bursaries of 150 shillings each. When we were going back for holidays,
Teso what?
local government,
Can you imagine?
each one
Devolution.
each one had a bursary of 150 shillings each. The district which used to give the highest bursary was Masaka district, because it was the richest. I think it was about 200 shillings or 180, that I cannot tell now, because this is a long time ago. And I was saying, when we were going home for holidays, with the bursar at the school distributed to every student at that time, a document to be filled which was called a bus warrant, upon which we came to the bus park when we were going home for first term holidays, and we charged 10 shillings and 80 cents as a transport fare up to Soroti for students, when full fare was 14 shillings and 40 cents. I can't forget that. What I'm trying to say here is, then there was meaning in being a student. There was meaning in being a student. Number two, that thing gives you a feeling that the country owns you, and you owe to the country.
You are indebted.
You are indebted to the country.
And you know, even the preceding year.
You might be off mic.
Yes, the young ones, by young I mean about 10, 12 years, would travel for free in that bus. Because what was the criteria? They ask you to put your arm across your head like this. If you don't touch
your other ear,
then you travel
pay.
free. Free.
You travel for free.
Yes. There is a particular taxi driver who used to drive a Peugeot 404 Estate. Later on in life, I met this gentleman when he was an old man. When I was I met him on the street. He was now an old man. But I liked that man because he was flying in Entebbe, Kampala in a 404. I was so mesmerized and taken up by that man that I loved him. So one day I met him along Nkrumah Road. I had some little money on me. I was so moved that I just gave him all the money, only to realize that I'd also given him money which was for putting fuel to my car to go back. But I was glad I met him.
Anderson,
In all this, what are you trying to
the
raise?
elders are emphasizing that there can be organic patriotism if you feel the country gives you some basics.
What is it that the country is not doing?
Some free education, some free health, some affordable transport. You have citizenship and sense of ownership, and therefore you are indebted to people of the country. And that's why I was ending by saying, as we do census, the project we are having this week, I pray that we understand that the country which has not decided to reduce its population growth below the 3.4% or 3.6% growth, as we are going to hear, that we have an uphill task to plan for about the 100 million population by the Vision 2040 year, which we expected, which is just a few years from, less than 16 years
But I
from
beg
now.
to disagree with you on population reduction.
No, I'm not speaking for reduction.
Well,
I'm
gentlemen.
saying for us working in the same gear.
Mm.
Since we are aware of the population growth,
Eh.
you can't say the economy is growing at 3-4% when actually the population grows at 3 point. It means in simple economics we say you need 3 times more growth of the GDP to maintain
You
the
see,
fundamental.
However, the problem is
let us look at it this way.
Mm.
Population growth data per se
Eh,
and the economic growth data per se does not explain the level of poverty of a country.
I agree.
But the capacity and the potential of a country, if it has not been harnessed to the level to which it should be, is what should define the ability and the strength that the government must put in place to ensure that this potential is realized. So the argument of saying population is growing and the economic growth is lower, the GDP growth is lower, is a theoretical economic yeah, which does not operationalize
All right.
actual situations on the ground.
All right, gentlemen. That was an organic discussion there.
Well,
Probably
yes. But one important
suggesting
thing
the
I want
most
to
imp-
try on both
Okay.
is that the figures we are using are not factual,
Mm.
both for economic growth and those of population growth.
I agree.
Nobody has factual, because our office that is supposed to handle that work is still sleeping. That's why the census is next Friday. No information that is really out there to encourage everybody to be ready for being estimated.
And what have you done with the earlier data? The earlier data in the household survey,
gentlemen.
power
Whereas
survey.
also, just let me finish
And the
this.
census.
Whereas also,
Hey.
we are talking about the census.
Mm.
Apart from the laptops and what I see given around,
Mm.
what are the fundamental technical improvements to correct on the data collection in this country?
All right.
Because to me,
Mm.
I think we are still doing, although you see computers, we are basically analog. I was in Zimbabwe one time,
Mm.
and I found out that in Zimbabwe, they can tell you the population of Zimbabwe even today if you wanted it. Because their digital concept of biometric registration has been purified to a point where it is almost up to
And
date.
they have improved the
Birth
collection
registration,
of
death
vital
registration,
statistics.
Yes.
and collection
what
of vital
has happened
statistics.
is this.
All right.
We don't have.
All right.
If the national register is complete,
Mm.
what we started with the national ID, it would mean at every sub-county, you know who is born, who has died, and therefore
And
that
then the
you
bottom-
can
the
extrapolate.
bottom
You can extrapolate that data.
Can we conclude? The
All right.
bottom line
ID
is,
would be
But
automatic.
yours is expiring.
the bottom
Your
line-
ID is
the
expiring.
bottom
soon.
line is this. The bottom line is this.
Eh.
What is the legal framework which binds me to take my registration of a child or death of my person to the registration authority?
All right.
We don't have
Eh.
an enforcement system if the law is there. We do not have the law if it is really not enacted.
All right.
The
Let's
national ID is
hear
of
from,
national
let's hear from
register.
George Musisi. In all fairness, we should give him an opportunity also to comment on this issue. This gentleman have decided to begin the show on the front of
On nostalgic.
the economic situation of our country. One wonders whether this kind of discussions actually feature at the National Unity Platform Party.
Of course, one of the if you see people being nostalgic about what happened 50 years ago, it shows that there are lots of failures. There are not many societies in the world which are worse off than they were in some aspects. So if you go to even countries around us, if you say that if you're Nairobi and you say public transport 50 years ago was better than it is now, it shows that there's a fundamental problem. So these discussions are healthy. These discussions are good. But then beyond the discussions, we have a more fundamental issue, because one of the problems we have today is that we all diagnose the right things. We all know what is where we want to be, but it seems we just don't agree on how to get there. And that should be the question that should trouble us. We all know what we want. If the discussion is saying that Honorable Resu is saying, in 1968, public transport was very good. It was public education was very good. So the question today that you should be answering is that why is it that part of the reason why we have a lot of traffic jam, why we have a very disorganized city, is because the public transport system is totally down. And he's saying that public transport in 1968 was better than it is now. Yes, we know that the population has increased exponentially, but then even the educated people and urban planners are much more. So it's such an irony that at a time when you have all these educated people, or these urban planners, or these authorities, you still feel nostalgic about such a basic thing which happened 60 years ago.
No, but I should tell you this very clearly.
All right, Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break, Honorable Eresu. You had an opportunity to dictate the pace of this discussion. But let's go for a break. If you want Noop's policy positions, we'll return from the break, and he will articulate it, and you also have your final say on this topic. Let's go for a break now.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. Review the major events of the week. Today we'll be looking at the new wave of sanctions that have been placed on the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, and two former ministers, Agnes Nandutu and Dr. Dr. Mary Goretti Chitutu. We'll also be doing Press Freedom Day. Today's Press Freedom Day. We would like to discuss the state of press freedom in our country, not forgetting the issue that the theme is rotating around, issues of environmental protection. My guest, Honorable John Eresu, economist and former Karimaido County MP, Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform, Imam Idi Kasozi, lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda, member of the Justice Forum Party, Honorable Stephen Kitalabirawa, economist, former Bilisa County MP, proponent of national dialogue. Now, gentlemen, unless you want to close up the arguments that the discussion that you were having, you had something to say, Honorable John Eresu, but also Honorable Mkitale wanted to hear the policy interventions of the National Unity Platform in regard to what we were discussing. I don't know who wants to start. Honorable Eresu.
Yeah, I was saying the manifesto of FDC is the most, sorry, not FDC, Noop. Should be the major tool and weapon to convince those Ugandans who are skeptical about them to be part of them. But if they have these documents and they don't popularize it, then they have a challenge. Because the problem is that as far as many people see and hear, Noop has never gone to discuss seriously what are their intentions, what are their interests, and what do they think about the economy, what do they think about the, what is it called, the politics, what do they think about all these other things which affect everyday life in Uganda. You see, it is not about criticism that can make you build a political platform. It is about offering the alternative in concrete terms that gives you the platform. And this is what I see as lacking.
All right, let's hear from George Musisi very quickly. We hear you're being sued, you don't have a constitution. Now, Honorable Eresu is even talking about a manifesto. What is your platform?
But of course, Anderson, you have a duty to tell listeners the accurate thing. No one has sued. Someone raised an objection on a constitution, regarding a constitution.
I saw some stories moving around that you had sued.
But I have a duty to tell you the facts at least.
All right.
That if someone if someone challenges the document, the platform, then you can't say you don't have, because it's challenging an existing document. But that notwithstanding, Honorable Eresu says that, if you don't popularize it, I don't know what he calls popularizing it. I don't know how many parties have advertised their manifestos or policy documents in today's dailies or the dailies. But the point is, if you look at what is he saying, just a second, Anderson.
What is he saying, Honorable, what Eresu is saying? You spend more time talking about Museveni.
Yes.
You don't talk about.
Let me tell you why. The post-1995 constitution, I'm not even going to go much further. Post-1995 constitution, we've had over 5 elections. What has been the biggest stumbling block on the elections? When some of the issues in elections, or some of the election issues, have not been the parties not having. We've had over 10 people competing against and several parties. Has it been absence of documents? Is Honorable Eresu telling me that FDC and UPC and DP have in the past failed because they didn't have documents, or they didn't have policy documents? why the argument of Museveni and Musevenism is fronted, it's because it's key to everything else. The FDC and the other parties have not failed because of in the past elections, because of absence of very good documents. I don't know whether he read FDC's document or TDA's document in the 2016 election, the policy document. I don't know whether he knows NRM's policy on public transport. So I think that the most important thing that the post-1995 elections have given us, and when a person, Dr. Besa, keeps on saying that the power needs to be some of the tests of an election, you have to debate that when people go to elect, are they going to be in a fair environment where they can look at the documents and make a decision on the basis of the strength of the documents? We're still looking at basics. We're still looking at basics.
Why I raise this point is, and I mentioned in the corridor, my in-laws, the Baganda, have been saying that that NUP did not take advantage of the spontaneous wave, the fatigue the Ugandans had. They said, let's try this new, a 3 months old party took that big percentage. Now, 3 years down the road, we do not see in this information age, in this IT revolution, even when NUP got a chance to move around the country, the tone in Luweero ended without even mentioning what was in their manifesto, what the alternative policy. Instead, it went into parochial things.
Why do you want them to behave the way as per your rules?
Let me give you a warning. Unless NUP styles up,
you will take up the space.
They have lost
the steam
opportunity. And that's what I'm saying. Lubale move.
Then you as NRM, why do you bothered?
I want to.
You as NRM, why you bothered by not losing out?
For me as a Democrat,
you should be celebrating.
As a Democrat, I expected an opposition not as an opponent, but as an alternative policy provider.
All right.
That the country can rely on. More so at this era and time when we have so many young people who had been swayed to that direction. And for me as an advocate of national dialogue, I would want to compare between
NRM and NUP.
When you have an election, moderator shooting people on the streets,
Imam, what's your take?
My take is, I have taken time following the politics of this country. It is built on two things. First of all, there's a lot of excitement. When people get excited, people get excited with Museveni and NRM. You see where we are.
They are still.
Yes, it's where we are. People again got excited with even before. If you go to the experiences of 1961-60, when you hear what happened, then KY. Okay, with those unopposed MPs from Central or from Uganda. All that was excitement, and it is the takeover of Idi Amin and the reaction of Ugandans, excitement. The overthrow of Idi Amin, excitement. Going to the bush, excitement. The rise of NUP, and even all the other, even including when people Jema came up. Okay, our people get just excited. And the documents my elder brother here is talking about are for a few people who critically look at them. And then the result is bringing to us a crop of politicians who are just survivors, who don't think about the country. They only think about, how do I survive? How do I make ends meet? And when you ask him, what plan do you want? Do you have for your people? They don't have.
Right.
So they keep creating and recreating new more constituencies. That's why that the very excitement that actually I think it is a way of mobilizing that has given us 300 new administrators.
Assistant RDC.
Yes. Do we need them?
All right, Imam, I want to ask
Do we
you.
need them?
Imam, like you said, you've been around for quite some time and followed the
Yes.
politics of this country. I want to ask you, Honorable Resu is raising the issue of manifesto.
Yes.
Honorable Mkitale is challenging NUP to produce what they stand for. But I want to ask you a fundamental question. Do we really decide our leadership here based on issues?
No, I have told you my answer is just excitement. We get excited over some issue and we move with it without looking at the dangers it may cause for the country.
So
And
do manifestos matter
they do.
in the context
To
of
me,
the country?
to me, they matter because they should be the guiding principles on which we want to formulate the future. If we have 4 or 5 political parties competing for leadership, and we have those 5 different ideas, we could be using them as a way of building our nation. But the problem is, when somebody wins, then he looks at the other people as if they have nothing, even when they have issues that
Adversary.
are important than his.
So the political environment
Yes,
is also
they
important.
even sometimes jump and pick a few of them, try to implement them without even saying that. But
Let me consult
yes,
the originator.
and therefore the consequence
Very
is
quickly, Honorable Rest, we need to move on from this
the
topic.
consequence is
It's impromptu
is the
topic.
so-called corruption we are talking about that is even leading us into the discussion we want to enter today.
All right, and that's the discussion we are going into. And I'll begin with Mr. George Musisi.
But a quick
from-
one on Imam. You know, politics everywhere is excitement. Politics elicits excitement. Today, one of the biggest democracies in the world, analysts, your career analysts like Honorable Mukitari and Honorable Resu in the US cannot understand why a president like Trump, who breached almost everything they fundamentally stood for, is that popular. It's excitement. And you can call it a wave, you can call it spontaneity, but people do not always behave in set people's
And
opinions.
the
always
unfortunate
change.
part you are missing, Mr. Musisi, that excitement occurs in the US or in Britain or in another place. But because of the established systems, their countries keep going.
true.
Ours collapses. That's why every other month you have a supplementary budget going to only 3 institutions: President's office, State House, and some unclassified.
Now that is institutionalized excitement.
Can I
By
just chip a little, then we stop on this topic. Let me tell you one thing. I was a delegate to the Constituent Assembly. There was the Odoki report. And in the and the Odoki report had talked about the form of representation that we should have in this country. In their proposal, there was what they call proportionate representation, which
I'm an advocate for.
which was put aside. And I can reflect why it was put aside much later. It was no, the Constituent Assembly was not NRM. That is a mistake. It was the people of Uganda. It was put aside because the aura of that time did not really believe or did not conceive on the effect of what proportionate representation would entail, and thought that politics was about the winner takes it all. And the politics of the winner takes it all has one serious disadvantage. And one serious disadvantage with the winner takes it all is that it differentializes that alternative views, that alternative interests, which would contribute to the well-being of the country. I think this is where we should go back and revisit some of these aspects.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think we should get one other Friday where we should focus on what these political parties stand for and dig deeper into this discussion. But let's now shift to the issue of the sanctions, and I'll begin with you, Mr. Musisi. You people are celebrating that sanctions are being imposed on leaders in Uganda. Your leader has actually said these are fruits of his relentless work and campaigns abroad. Actually praised a number of NUP people in Britain, in the US, who are apparently leading the campaign to have several Ugandan sanctioned. He had even called for withdrawal of aid to our country. Why is this very important to you as a tool of your politics?
Well, I would like to raise the debate, Anderson, from personalities to the whole bit of sanctions. So many of our leaders, I think, have not taken time to appraise themselves of how this international sanctions regime operates. Sanctions globally, both individual and even those by bodies like Security Council, first of all, are unilateral diplomatic tools. I've heard even MPs saying, she was not given a fair hearing. Sanctions are tools that they use to either curb impunity or abuse. And it's not even the first time in our case that individual sanctions like this have been used on our leaders. we had the US recently, in the recent past, it has sanctioned the former Inspector General of Police, the former commander of CMI, and the different actions. The US even sanctioned, people think that it sanctions only politicians and army officers, a former High Court judge, Justice Moses Muchibi, and a lawyer in Kampala. I don't know whether people know that. Of course, they hadn't supported anti-homosexuality or what. So sanctions globally, it's used as a tool to fight, because sometimes the people are accused of abusing or torturing. Some of these people are powerful in their own countries. That is why sanctions as a tool, it doesn't work that you first have to be convicted. It's not a court, neither is it an administrative tribunal, which is supposed to be bogged down by rules of natural justice and fair hearing. It's just a tool being used by either an institution or a country saying that for us, we disassociate with this action. We don't agree with this. Now, if you look at these particular sanctions that the UK used, the global anti-corruption sanctions, the list has over 40 people. The list has over 40 people from various countries: Kosovo, Bulgaria, Russia, South Africa, the Gupta family, which took down President Zuma. They are all on that list. So it's not the first time they're using them in the UK. Neither are all the people there anti-homosexuality activists on the list. They've over 40 people. So first of all, you have to understand from that background that sanctions is a tool that countries have developed. Initially, they were only for global bodies like Security Council. But then stronger countries, I think it's the US which started with its Magnitsky Act. Then UK followed suit, and it also enacted a law which says that we can sanction. It's just showing displeasure. And of course, it includes among the effects, apart from property freezes, because even General Kaihura, remember, said exactly the same thing. Said, I have no property in the US. Anderson, you were a journalist, remember that. I have no property in the US, I have no interest. But it goes beyond that. Some of the effects include the retired High Court judge gave an interview, Moses Muchibi, said that I cannot even operate a mobile money line in my name. Because what happens, they cripple the financial transactions. You know that those guys control the MasterCard, Visa, and so on and so forth. So the financial transactions are all. So it goes to family, it goes to immediate family, it goes to travel bans and all so on and so forth.
And you're excited about it.
But it's coming from a point of saying that we disassociate ourselves with this. So going back to what you are calling excitement, ordinarily in Uganda, one of the things that we are grappling with is the issue of impunity in whatever office that a person occupies, whatever office. And we were excited when they sanctioned General Kandi. We were excited when they sanctioned, because it's sometimes people who are sanctioned cannot face charges at home. We tried as lawyers in 2016 to prosecute General Kaihura for torture. Mr. Chita Tamobile is going to beat us up at Makindi. And up to now, the case has never been concluded. Eventually, we know all how it ended. So sometimes the people sanctioned cannot face charges in their respective countries, and that's how sanctions work globally. And it's not the first time, even in Uganda. And I don't know why this is eliciting all sorts of emotions, saying that now it's because of the Anti-Homosexuality Act. Because why I don't want to believe that it's and I was on this radio and said that one of the problems you're going to see with the Anti-Homosexuality Act legislation is because of its popularity at home. It's going to be used as a political tool to fight political opponents and as a shield that any form of criticism towards me is because I've told you one of the 42 people on the UK Global Anti-Corruption Sanction list. Not all of them are because of fighting anti-homosexuality. Actually, the key thread, if you look at the 42 people, are money-related or corruption-related charges. That's the key thread. Secondly, even in Uganda today, how comes when they sanctioned Kaihura and Kandiho and Moses Muchibi and the Commissioner General of Prisons, they had nothing to do with homosexuality. All right,
you are an office of court. We know Honorable Agnes Nandutu. We know Goreti Chitutu. They are under trial in court, and they have not been found guilty.
Yes.
One. Secondly, we know Anita Among was never sanctioned here in Uganda, has never faced any criminal charges.
Yes,
and the question is being asked even by the Minister of Foreign Affairs to the UK government. Why haven't you waited for these processes to be exhausted on the two former ministers, but also why sanction somebody who has not been sanctioned here?
And also exempt Lugolobi.
And but even the president exempted him in the cabinet reshuffle. Anyway. and drops Kitutu. Anyhow, like I mentioned, the background I was giving on sanction was that the international sanction system doesn't work according to the judicial systems.
So it's arbitrary.
No, listen. It's not. They use their own investigation mechanisms. They don't have to. Just imagine. So just imagine. Let me answer the question, Anderson. If you get an example of the Gupta family, which they, as per information, it even had the president captive. Which court would try the Gupta? So they use their own. It's not meant, because it's not a court of law. You don't have a right to go to the UK. It's not your birthright to go to the UK. We are just saying we disassociate with you. Don't come to us. So you should, if in any case, if you're not hurt, you shouldn't take it as a punishment. Rightly, fortunately, the speaker said she doesn't need to travel to the UK, so there shouldn't be a problem. So no one should bother about the arbitrariness if you think that, because we are saying, us as per our information, we've received this and this, and we don't. So it doesn't work according to, because it's not a punishment mechanism of Ugandan courts that if you convict Kitutu, then we punish her by sanctioning her. That's not how sanctions work.
Honorable, let me come to you. Well, we know now the people have been sanctioned. We have seen their responses. But as a country, what lessons do we learn from this sanctions?
First of all, I want to say this: the sanction imposed on Right Honorable Speaker Among transcends beyond the personality of Among. It is an indictment on the Parliament of Uganda. It's an indictment on the legislative arm of government. Because in their own belief, they think these people Uganda doesn't matter. Or Uganda is so incompetent that it cannot, on its own, handle its own affairs. It's a form of tool in this matter, in my opinion, of a determination of neo-colonial control. Because if it is all about the Mabati scandal, as they put it, that it was a theft of from the poor of the poor, or property of the poor, then even those who are beyond or outside, who are mentioned in that scandal, should have also equally faced the same sanctions, even if they were in court or not, because they stand at the same level with the Right Honorable the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament. If others have been left,
is it possible that maybe the UK carried out some sort of investigation that we can't do here and came to a conclusion that she had a case to answer?
I have a feeling, since my other colleague here has said, they have their own measurements. It is not a court process. It could even be used arbitrarily to foster a different interests altogether.
Like?
Because the why I believe so is for one simple reason, that if others were mentioned to have been participants in the Mabati issue for the Karamoja, and they have been left clean, and they have picked one person and they say, we sanction you, then you are not being sanctioned for what they have told you. You are being sanctioned for other things, but this is just a smoke screen. And to me, I believe...
So you want collective guilt?
Oh yes, because there is a collective accusation which was on the table. The list was long. The list was long. Why do you leave these others and then sanction one person? That means it's a different thing altogether that you are chasing, and you are using it as a smokescreen. And that's why, for me, when I go back and I look at it and say, now, what is the whole thing for NUP as a political party with their leader, Robert Kyagulanyi, to celebrate, if it is a spat on the face of the legislative arm of the country he wants to lead? What does he gain out of it?
Just like you gain out of supporting.
You get it? The point I'm trying to put across is, let us agree on one thing, that these sanctions have been put in place not because of Mabati. The fact is this: if it was about Mabati, other people's names have been mentioned about Mabati, whether they're in court or not. So we eliminate Mabati from our own perspective. But then you pick up one person and say, you are going to be sanctioned. That's the Right Honorable Speaker. Most likely because there have been protests against the homosexuality law This is what they are chasing. And by the way, let's go back a bit. Earlier on, Honorable Chagulanyi had also been sanctioned by the UK government because of a song. I don't know how he managed to navigate his way to get that sanction lifted. But that is the point. The point is...
His MPs were bought to support homosexuality.
Maybe. So that is the point. You see, the whole thing is a bigger picture than what we see. And secondly, at a normal, at a national level, it is a spat on the integrity of our of our country and the stand of our independence and integrity.
All right. We're going to go for a break, but when we return, we will be digging deeper. But Mr. Musisi wants to respond to some of it.
One.
Yes. Then we'll bring it the other.
When you said sanitary, where was Mr. Eresu when they sanctioned the Inspector General of Police?
Honorable Eresu.
Honorable Eresu.
But these are two different.
Let me finish my point. I'm replying.
Let me
yes.
conclude.
They indicted, they sanctioned an Inspector General of Police. We didn't say people saying, it's a slap on the face of the Ugandan police. We have a sitting Commissioner General of Prisons.
Actually, we had some demonstrations there. People were opposing those.
We have a Commissioner General of Prisons. We didn't say something. It's an insult, an indictment on the Ugandan prison officers. Secondly, if you talk about, and I'm saying that if we saw an annual exhibition recently regarding profligacy in Parliament and corruption scandals, the Speaker said, no, these people are anti-homosexuality activists. They're attacking me because of this. Now, if you say that it was because of the anti-homosexuality, or even the Mabati things, it says that how comes others have not been mentioned? Over 10 ministers recorded statements. How comes the DPP charged 3? How comes the DPP charged 3? How did the other ministers get off the list? So the same question would be asked. That why is it that of all the ministers who took Mabati, only Kitutu and Gorovia and Nandutu were charged? How did that
Let me ask you, Honorable Eresu.
Actually,
Honorable Eresu, you come from TESO, and the situation is that the iron sheets that we are talking about, a speaker did explain that she got the iron sheets, but didn't take them for our own use, donated them to public schools. But the argument has always been that she took iron sheets which were supposed to be donated to the people of Karamoja. Let's look at that specific issue there. Is there no question for someone to answer?
But even Honorable Kasaya, the Minister of Finance, confessed.
Let's deal with the situation with the speaker first.
No. Yes, but he said he distributed some and some remained.
Yes.
That means he gave them to the community. Where is the difference? There is no difference. If the Right Honorable Speaker took and gave to the people, so did Honorable Kasaja also took and gave to the people of his constituency. Why is it that the one for the Honorable Speaker becomes an indictment and the one of Honorable Kasaja remains a blank?
To be fair,
so what I'm trying to say,
to be fair to the Speaker also, she bought the iron sheets and returned them to OPM.
Yes, which Kasaja has not done. I don't know whether he did his. But the question is, this Mabati issue we are talking about, if it is a fair sanction, the UK government should have been broad-minded, more composed, and factual, and realistic. But to pick one person, cherry pick, gives the impression that the intention behind the whole process was different. Because if you meet people stealing, then you say now it is Eresu who is the thief, and you leave the rest of you here, and yet you caught us all stealing, and then you say you are the one who is the problem.
Well, there's one listener who was contributing to this discussion who says we need more sanctions. Perhaps we could wake up from this impunity and corruption. I think all MPs should be sanctioned for the fact that they take bribes and expose the country to impunity. I say, don't mention my name, but tell them. So I've told you.
That is my position. In fact, he's talking what is my position. My position is, if all the Mabati people mentioned for have taken the Karamoja Mabati should have all been sanctioned, and that would be when I would justifiably say the British government was actually sanctioning because of the Mabati.
All right, let's go for a break now. When we return, Honorable Stephen Mutalibirawa and Imam Idi Kasozi will also share their views on this issue of sanctions. Is it the right thing? Should NUP be celebrating? Should we be scared? Should the leaders actually be concerned? or they should stand where they are, finally stood at saying they don't think these sanctions will actually affect them. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra continues after this break.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, review of the major events of the week. Right now, we are focusing on the issue of sanctions. Speaker Anita Among, Dr. Mary Goretti Kitutu against Ndutu, sanctioned by the U.S. government, no travel to the UK, and also freezing of their assets, if any, in those particular countries. My guest this evening, Honorable John Eresu, economist and former Karamaido County MP, Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party, Imam Idi Kasozi, lecturer at IUIU, member of the Justice Forum Party, Honorable Stephen Mutalirawa, economist, former Blissa County MP, proponent of national dialogue. Imam Idi Kasozi, you're next on the platform, but before you actually do that, let me read out this comment that is coming out. Sanctions due to corruption are highly welcome, and we appeal to the international world to slap more sanctions on more government officials who are looting the country massively with impunity through one, non-existent projects like Lubawa Hospital, two, supplementary budgets of trillions of shillings, 1 month to the end of financial year, 3, excessive taxation with extremely poor no services, 4, exaggerated procurement and tender costs. That's one contribution there coming in from this listener who unfortunately did not leave a name behind. Imam Idi Kasozi.
Yes, you know, what is confusing and what actually brings this debate, where sometimes when you want to defend a principle, you may look as if you are supporting the corrupt, is because also of the impunity with which these people do these sanctions. As Mse put it, that it is used to counteract abuse, but those who are imposing them are also abusing the weak, because they are in bed with so many other big wigs who are also doing the same and even committing heinous crimes against humanity, but they don't say anything about it just because of interests. So that's where actually we have issues. Number 2, now in Uganda, when you lose, at least I know the two, I know Ndutu, I know Mere
Goretti Kitutu.
Yes. I'm very certain after losing after losing cabinet posts, they are going to be ordinary Ugandans like the rest.
Which they are.
Yes, they are going to be, because at least for sure, for example, Goretti Kitutu, I know her very, very well.
Do you think
as a teacher?
Do you think it's possible that the UK government can take a decision to, one, ban their travel to the UK, freezing their assets without knowing what they actually have?
They can. They can on many occasions, including individuals who have less influence, have also been denied the opportunity to get those visas in a manner that they don't say it is sanctions, but they implement it. They implement it in a manner that is
technically
very, very, very uncivilized. And at least I have had to share some exchange with some of them over these issues, the way they do it. Just because you are opposed to one idea they have, then you become a target. That is not fair at all. So, but I think the whole big issue, the bigger picture is when they sanction the Speaker of Parliament, you know, the Speaker of Parliament is not like an Inspector General of Police. The Speaker of Parliament leads a big arm of government which has interaction with Britain through Commonwealth. Okay, what does it entail? That's where we should be really concerned. Of course, taking people's Mabati and others, to me, the value of the Mabati they are talking about is in no way equivalent to some of the biggest corruption scandals that have occurred in this country, and these people have been silent, including some of the organizations operating with our own. Okay, to me that's where the issue is. So I say it is the sanctions good, but is an unfair way of implementing punishment over people, over countries, whereas those who are doing it are not themselves genuine, as if I can use it. We can celebrate over them. But of course, individuals, comments that are coming in, all of them can say that. The problem is because there are silent issues that many of us also don't know. And therefore, we could be misled and promote something that may be against us without knowing. Therefore, this unilateral decisions in a world where you say you are democratic, okay, you want everybody to be heard. I think it is also an archaic form of operations that has been invented in the recent past in order to freeze or threaten the weak. The unfortunate part, these sanctions will not, they will affect the people we are talking about. They may affect some other people. But in the final analysis, the ordinary person of Karamoja who lost the opportunity to get these iron sheets, is he going to be compensated?
UK has no duty to compensate him.
Yeah. And why, you are a lawyer, why do you think people are punished in the law?
For deterrence, especially the punishment has an effect of deterrence to deter others from doing it. For retribution.
Does this punishment have any deterrence to us?
If it has no deterrence, then the people sanctioned should have no problem with it.
No, the people are saying this because also, you see, these days I have a very, very interesting mambo that I am very jealous of people who don't know these days. The people who don't know, I am jealous of them because they are at peace. They are at peace in whatever they are doing. Yes, they are completely at peace.
All right.
They are not bothered.
So in
we
conclusion,
are here now making all these arguments, whatever. For them, they are not bothered.
So in conclusion, Imam,
I am saying, therefore, deterring, punishing people should be on. We should support it, but it should be systematic and orderly, not randomly and not what do I say, unilateral. The way the West is using it.
All right. We have more comments coming in before bringing in Honorable Mkitale. Honorable Eresu, UK government has sanctioned some oligarchies in Russia that cannot be neocolonialism. It's Honorable Anita, the Supremo for accountability by her position. This listener is actually saying, let Anita Among be accountable in her Supremo position. Then we have another comment. Thanks for the show, Kenneth. The British government should give us a break. They should stop interfering with the way we handle our affairs. Uganda is a sovereign state. They should respect us. They have no business in the way Uganda is governed. That's a comment coming in from Blair. Honorable Mkitale, your thoughts on this issue of sanctions?
As somebody who has a parliamentary DNA for 15 years, if I had a choice, I would first want to talk to my parliamentarians and cabinet on whether the separation of powers and checks and balance are still with us. When I saw the executive wanting to use the speaker to usurp the mandate of sessional and standing committees in as far as executing their duties are concerned, when a loan approval is being done without the Committee of National Economy scrutiny and allowing other stakeholders to go to the committee and give in their views. equally, when you talk about the public, Bunyoro, of course, have been waiting for and Usoga for the public university. Saturday, today we saw the one coming again, not through the Committee of Education, again a bypass. I would like to plead with my triple A and the ministers. Parliament will never be executive. If we want Parliament to be an extension of executive, we can as well as wind up Parliament so that we become fully executive and we forget
All right.
about.
But what are the sanctions?
Again, this week the EU awarded Spy and his colleagues another award for fighting corruption. In the last 3 months, I've been reading a lot of public opinions. I don't know who informs those public opinions. Best performing, what, CEO, even those which are supposed to be merged being. So in this country, we have a challenge. We have a challenge. But, one, as a student of international politics and international relations, we are interdependent. We strive to be independent, but we are purely dependent. So the colonial mentality is with us. Clearly, how I wish it was the local systems, the local sanctions, the local indictments by the interreligious council, my imams and my bishops saying no to corruption, no to human rights. Because first of all, corruption and human rights are not even partisan issues. So I don't want to hear NUP and NRM. I wish it was a matter of the national importance, national interest, the common good, a bipartisan matter. That the Uganda Law Society comes out to condemn these people. That the civil society of Uganda has condemned these people. That even our cultural institution, at one time I said, I hope this does not become a Cosborough conurables for the, when somebody says, but if Teso can take the uncles, why not this one? I don't want us to reach that level. That something wrong in this country should be condemned by our local systems. That the local systems should be the ones to check and put a Ugandan standard. That if I go home, if I'm corrupt, I am resented, I am shunned by my community. Not to go because I'm an Anglican. If I go to my Church of Uganda, I'm given a front seat because I'm going to buy a Canon vehicle. Because this is where we have reached. So for me, on the issue of the values, the ethos, the moral decadence in this country, how corrupt are being, praised, I don't want to wait for some foreign foreign sanction, foreign indictment. It does not matter. I wish it was our own internal systems, and that's why sometimes I thank the public court. At one time when for us we were trying to put effort in fighting corruption in government, I see sometimes people are humiliated. Some is the documentation, it goes on record that there's something wrong. Now, the moment we make this debate partisan, we lose it. Yeah, we lose it. Because now the NRM will say, NUP is saying they are the ones who reported. We have to defend our own. That is wrong. I don't want to come and say, hey, somebody is from Bunyoro, I must defend our own. We should say, citizens of Uganda, who are supposed to have got benefit from this national resource. And at this point, we are talking of the Karamajongs. And that's why at least, much as some people are complaining, at least the president took something in terms of the cabinet reshuffle. It was too much to tolerate the two direct minister, senior and the deputy, but I would want to see much more of that being done so that we can say in our country, never again that it is risky. You see, the problem why corruption in this country has, it is not risky to be, the corrupt have not paid the price.
And the bad thing
we have not recovered
you cannot give what you don't have.
So, okay. So what we need, I remember we tried to make a law with this former MP of Wazima Kindi, trying to make sure the issues of recovery, I don't see much. The IGG has tried to...
That's Honorable Simbwa.
Simbwa, we tried. And by the way, whoever has been very hard on corruption, like some of us who fought these excesses on oil and gas and some of these, you are the hunted. The hunter become the hunted. You are followed to the last minute. For me, I have never got any business in oil and gas. I will never get anything from you. Actually, my premises were encumbered by UNRA at all my 3 sites. As if somebody is following you, that you try to speak for this, you must be fought. Even when something naturally finds you at your ancestral land, it is sifted. How this one should, and even write very bad records against you to State House. I don't know. This is the level of impunity we have with the corrupt in this country, that they are so powerful.
That is the sour bit.
That they can...
Or the bitter bit of corruption.
Yes, they can be in charge. True. They can be in charge of all processes. I have been watching cases. If I documented what has been done against me, because I said the people of Bunyoro have an entitlement, God-given land, somebody will want you to apologize for that. For you to say, we want a human right of business, people of Achula and Bunyoro and gas, you are a problem. For you to say, please, when you are doing sugar in Bunyoro, can we have some shares? You are a problem.
So in conclusion,
for you to say that let us...
That corruption is huge in the country. That's what he means.
At one time, it's like corruption is in charge.
Yes.
Corruption is in charge, and I don't want anybody to trivialize this matter to a partisan matter.
All right.
It is a very big vice which at the end of the day affects everybody.
All right.
What do you think, even as NRM, when we are moving to the public, we are trying to speak for what we have failed to do? Is because the money which we should have done, the free education for the poor, the medicine, the good road, the pothole, the money was eaten in corruption.
Right.
Not to NRM to put up Chadondo, but to individuals who are very, very, very rich. Yet the country is borrowing commercially for salaries. The country is borrowing for what should have been used the public purse. So corruption is a very bad vice that nobody should ever have the audacity to defend. And at the end of that day, I saw it in Congo.
Please give me.
I saw it in Congo I saw this as a young man in Congo when there was war and I left Kabalega to go and trade in Congo. That the Mobutu's close people, what you call here relative friends, were very powerful. They had the public jets. There was no public transport. They had the private. I first saw a satellite phone.
But Dolite had an airport.
We had. So you find that the public spaces are not there. The public facilities are not. But the few individuals are too powerful. They don't know what they had. For us, we used to go and get, when you are lacking dollars here, we used to go and get dollars there and gold. You would find a satellite phone. You are using a walkie-talkie, talking to somebody, but the public phone is not working. You sit in a plane to go from Bunya to another place. There is no transport. People are sitting in a lorry, what you call this name of a country, a big lorry with fish on it. That's what the public is using. So the risk I am seeing, Uganda, unless we go for what I always say, a truth and reconciliation, a national comprehensive national dialogue, we could end up there.
All right. More comments coming in from the listeners. Anthony Roysina says, good evening, Spectrum Extra. UK government should leave Uganda alone. If they love Uganda as they claim, they should help us to build more industries for Uganda to develop, not sanctions. Well, we have another comment. Good evening, Kenneth and the panelists. I don't think that the iron sheet scandal is the biggest scandal this country has ever seen. Certainly not. Karamojong, like all other Ugandans, are much more threatened by HIV and AIDS. But whom did the UK sanction over the Gavi funds? Corruption is a form, but the content is known to the Western world, and one may not be wrong to align these actions with homosexuality-related issues. We have another comment. Good evening. I'm streaming live from Radio Garden in Addis Ababa. Thank you very much for joining us, Innocent Opio. And he says, on census, do we still need physical counting of people in this day and age with the advancement of technology? On sanctions, it is It is not necessary, but what else do Ugandans have? The corruption stains corruption stains many people, also us who are out of the country, because people now start becoming cautious about you. We have another comment. Why are we discussing this? Anita says she is not bothered. The UK thinks this is right. Let's simply wait and see, because blaming the homosexuals for everything does not help. Then we have another comment. Okelo Patrick Bonyo from Busega. Sanction or no sanction, we will not lose sleep over it. Europeans just want to please their citizens that they don't agree with Uganda's stand on the gay law. Here in Uganda, we are suffering of bad roads. Where is the UK? We have bad governance, human rights violation. Where is the UK? Corruption is now official because we even budget for it. I'm no longer trusting a Muzungu action because they are double-edged swords. I think we should do away with this thing called democracy because it has held us hostage since most of our resources are for political patronage. I don't mind having a productive dictator than having petty democracy. Democracy is for rich countries, not third world poor countries. Well, Honorable Reso, there were some comments that came to you directly.
Yeah.
Let's hear from you, and then we'll hear from Mr. George Musisi.
There are two issues which were raised, which came directly to me. One of them was about...
And in fact, I wanted to add another one. There's another listener here who actually reminded us that Bobby Wine had been sanctioned for 10 years. That time elapsed, and then the sanctions were lifted.
Maybe I should clarify, it was a visa ban, not sanctions. There's a difference. This law is even very recent. It's a 2021
Well, it's a sanction. The travel ban is a sanction, and it is also imposed in this regard.
It may be interpreted as this particular one, which is not the case.
All right. Let's hear from Honorable Reso.
I want to say this. There is a comment which came making a comparison between the sanctions against the Russian rich people and the Right Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Nandutu and the Honorable Goreti Kitutu in Uganda.
The speaker, not the Prime Minister.
Then, I want to say this. We must know the West, in the case of Russia, they are at war with Russia, and this is a part of the war. They are using these oligarchs in Russia have always been there, and most of them have been banking money even in the UK. Some have even migrated and invested in the UK, in all these Western countries. It is only now, because they are at war, that they think these people have a problem. And I can tell you one thing for sure.
And they want to steal the money.
And they want to steal the money. And the Russians have all said, if you steal our money, which is $300 billion, is it like that? We are going to steal we are going to confiscate your $280 billion. So in effect, you will have stolen 200 what? You will have stolen only $20 billion. They have realized that one is bad. Then they have turned around. The Secretary General of the European Union the other day was saying Russia should behave diplomatically, as if they were not behaving diplomatically. You see that hypocrisy. Now, I want to go back to the other thing that a certain comment was made, and it was with respect to corruption. By all means, corruption has complicated the affairs of our country. Let us admit it. And if there was a way we should put new laws to handle corrupt people in this country, because they lead us nowhere. Our economy is doing badly, let us admit. And it's basically because of bad people who are in charge.
And the UK is helping you.
And in any case, the UK is not helping us in this regard.
It is.
No.
When it does this, other people will actually...
We have discerned the
afraid.
We have discerned the fact that, and this is my position, and I want it to be clear to the listeners. We have discerned the fact that this indictment that they have put is just a smoke screen on a anti-gay law. There is nothing like Mabati issue here, because otherwise everybody who was implicated should have been sanctioned.
All right, let's
So
carry
by elimination method, we've realized that, let us use our common sense, this is just a cover-up. But in the real sense, they are shy to say it all, because they know very well that they would antagonize the population in Uganda against them.
All right.
But what I'm trying to put across is this.
You were on corruption.
If it is corruption that is the issue, and I I personally see corruption in this country. We have failed to put the mechanisms and the commitment and the dedication to fight it. Because of one simple reason, one way or the other, some people benefit from it. And this is the problem. So we must find a formula. I can tell you that today, as members of the former members of Parliament, Parliamentary Alumni of Uganda, it was a subject. And we discussed it so thoroughly, and that we must find a way to get out of this corruption. Because this corruption is not only on stealing of money and property, it has transcended into the nature of our politics. In that, for example, today, I can be a member of a political party, but how much does that political party have control over me when I go for elections? The political party waits for me until I've won that election, then they want to own me when I've used my own resources. How I used my resources and how I get it in order to win that election, it is not checked. And that is how we have ended up with a commercialized politics and a corrupt politics. So all these things must be packaged together.
All right.
So that we really put our country back on its feet.
All right.
And again, may I conclude?
Yes, please.
We have gone so far to make duplicity of so many corruption fighting agencies, to the extent that they are not actually fighting corruption. They have become like co-wives chasing attention of a husband. In other words, each one wants to do the most dramatic thing in order to catch the attention that it is working when it's actually not working, to be visible. And that will one way in which these institutions which have been put are also themselves corrupt.
All right. Let's hear from
two things. One, there's a fundamental misleading or misunderstanding of many times when there are these international tools used, even ISIS warrants. There's always that shield which is used. You've heard them, even from President Museveni when he was criticizing the ones issued against President Bashir. And they're saying, these international tools, the neo-colonialists, that is what, you remember the speech he gave at the swearing in of President Uhuru Kenyatta, blasting neo-colonials for issuing warrants. So every time there are these tools, there's always this cover, the umbrella of independence and sovereignty. Can they whites be unfair? Yes, they can be unfair. Sometimes, then the other misleading is that to think that why don't they indict everyone? Why don't they sanction everyone? So that's why people are even saying that people have eaten money for our roads. So UK has no duty to punish your people. This is just a show of displeasure. They have a discretion. You should be asking your DPP, whom you pay taxes, that why don't you charge all these people, not the UK. Secondly, this, like someone rightly said, if the person, because it's a show of displeasure by one party saying, don't come to us. If you are not bothered, like if you're not going to go there, then you shouldn't be bothered ordinarily. Then the other let me finish. If you look at as per yesterday, if you look at the list of people who were on the 42 list of the UK Global Sanctions list, it had people from countries as diverse as, actually Africans are very few. It's only, many of them are South Africans, but some Honduras, Nicaragua, all of those people. But Honorable Mokitare made a very important point that who can be here? We are so polarized as a country that corruption has been familiarized, tribalized. If I'm fault because I'm a Muganda. I'm even surprised that we have not had a delegation from Bugisu to go and at the British High Commission to complain about Kitutu and Nandutu. So we have been so polarized. Who can be so partisan? We no longer have national issues that no one can comfortably say that this corrupt person, if he's powerful, he will be tried by the Ugandan courts and charged and justice. We can't say that. So that's why in the beginning I was saying that we can't sit here and talk about manifestos, policy documents as if we're in any ideal democracy. We are still struggling with basics. If Mukitari is powerful, even police won't summon him, even if he comes and grabs my land. We're talking about basics.
Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for that break again, and then when we return, we'll look at some of the comments that are coming in from the listeners, wind up the discussion around this issue of sanctions, and then move on to press freedom. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this break.
Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90. Spectrum Extra, Fridays 7 to 9 p.m. on Radio 1 FM 90.
Well, Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90 review the major events of the week. My name is Kenneth Lukagandason, your host. My guest this evening, Honorable John Eresu, economist and former Kabaramaido County MP, Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party. Honorable Eresu comes from the NRM Party. Imam Idi Kasozi, lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda, member of the Justice Forum Party, also a farmer. Honorable Stephen Talabirawa, economist, former Bulisa County MP, proponent of national dialogue. Now, let's look at some of the other comments that is also from the NRM. All right, let's continue with the comments. Sharif writes in, says, if Honorable Among doesn't need to go to the UK, why are those people struggling to defend her? We need foreign aid, but when they try to bring us to order, we begin making noise. That's a comment there from Sharif. We have another comment. Whether sanctions or not, sanctions are good. If whatever lures us our own to go fly, invest in the US and other countries can be availed in Uganda, then good to go. However, most of these fellows don't even have or own a pussycat there. That is Tony Kent Shaze writing in from Mawanda Road in Mulago. On the Mabati, it's the politicians who benefit from the political clout. Ordinary people even don't know they are from OPM. They think the politicians bought them. And that's what President Yoweri Museveni at one time said. If anyone is found to have carried out political corruption, he actually defined it as political corruption, taking state property and donating it to the people in exchange for political clout. I remember his letter at the time this Mabati scandal came out. Then another comment. Let Honorable Eresu know that this line of argument on Anita is interesting. Kadaga passed the anti-homosexuality law. Did she ever get sanctions? It is of the belief that they are in things, but they are really eating together. That's a question. Is Eresu saying that corruption is okay? The speaker shouldn't be touched? If Uganda can't, shouldn't other people who have the means do it? That's a comment there from another listener. Then we have a comment from Robert Nkumi. Spectrum Extra, the NRM fellows are being untruthful. How many NRM voters even know what the NRM stands for, let alone its manifesto? In Uganda, how many people even read the NRM manifesto, or FDC or UPC, when most of them are on daily bread issues, which in most times don't have any merit? That's a comment from Robert Nkumi. Good evening. We are suing the UK for infringement on our sovereignty of Uganda, but we are indirectly complaining about the UK exercising its sovereignty. Let's focus on building our country. That's a comment from Joseph there. If money and Mabati, if it's money and Mabati, why haven't they sanctioned Honorable Lugolobi? It is something else to re-agenda with that comment. Then we have another comment. No, somebody writes, I don't understand who cast the Africans to believe that everything Western is the benchmark. Nowhere had a backward country ever developed through the much-touted majority rule multi-party politics designed to divide and fool the populace. The majority are neither competent nor enlightened enough to provide leadership other than misleading the masses. Once politics become more profitable than business, you have a dying economy and society. That is Jeff there with that comment from Nakawa. Then we have Kauma Digo in Mitiana writing in and says, I concur with Council Musisi on the issue of elections. To me, elections have become useless, meaningless. Therefore, until Uganda's elections are cleaned up, the good manifesto shall always remain history documents. Then we have another comment here from John Biabazaire, who is listening in. He says, good evening, Spectrum Extra. The GDP is the capacity of citizens to consume, not URA, which is where government draws resources to deliver public goods. Once the citizens have no ability to consume, or in university's definition, classes is called off. In university definition, it is called lack of effective demand or purchasing power. You are discussing wishes, not ability to pay. Government who when you talk about government, who is in government in Uganda? Government is the citizens and their quality to produce and consume their GDP. That's John Biabazaire listening in from Fort Portal. Well, is there anyone who wants to make any comment about what the listener have said in this round of comments? To say. Very quickly, Honorable.
There is a certain comment which said the people of Teso. I think he was implying because
you're from Teso.
You see, let us not go into tribal discussions here. That is cheap talk. I don't think I've met the Right Honorable Prime Minister in a long time to even know, the Speaker, in a very long time. And if I met her, that was a long ago. And in any case, even when I talk about this subject, I'm not trying to have in the back of my mind Teso. I have never lived with that kind of thinking. But suffice to say that I want to add something very important here. Let us agree. Let us understand a very simple fact that Europe, or the developed world as we see it, does not wish Africa to grow. This is a fact. Because if you ever step in Europe, or most of these developing countries, they don't have resources. They don't have natural resources worth what they do. If you go there to look for minerals, you will not get them. But where do they get the minerals to do this manufacturing? Africa and most of these developing countries. And as long as you tow their interest, even if you do the dirtiest thing in the world, they will never follow you. The moment you begin to show some interest which divert with what their interest is, that's when you get problems.
All right.
Ironically, a few years after colonial rule, a boy from Kavera Maido traveled by public transport and go to Smack. I don't know how many can do that today. So,
what I wanted to say, let us not trivialize the debate. When I was bringing this context of transport at that time, I wanted to relate in between the period Uganda went through. Fortunately enough, when the first government of 1962 came, I was 10 years old.
All right.
And I saw all these transitions of decay.
I wanted to say, Kenneth,
Very
independence is deserved. When we fail to have our own good medical systems and we run to those foreign systems, when we loot our own taxpayers' money and we want to depend on foreign taxpayers' money, and then we say we don't need
Which not be questioned.
No.
For me, I would want us to say, let us internally have the discipline to live within our means. And then, and it's also true. A lot of people who have got some money are investing outside. Their children are studying outside.
Yes.
They have bought homes outside. They even used to ask me, but before you came to Parliament, why did you buy a home outside? In Uganda, I think anything can happen.
So they steal from here and
let us not only start abusing those foreigners when they tell us when actually we are not.
But
we should refuse their money to live within our means.
Let us accept a very
we
simple
need actually
fact.
to move on. Time is not on our
No,
side.
but can I just add on to what he says? Please forgive me. The real problem why everybody is running from this country to invest outside is because we have adopted policies which give anybody a leeway to transfer money from this country outside. The liberal exchange problem, because we have accepted the structural adjustment policies of the World Bank and IMF is one of the issues.
But how is that money moving?
blame
The financial intelligence authorities.
We have all the lineup of forex bureaus in this country. What are they for?
All right. Let's move on with Imam Idi Kasozi, and let's shift our gears now on the issue of press freedom, but also knowing the theme this year is about the role of the media in actually dealing with the problem of environmental degradation that is a big problem to us. We are seeing challenges in Kenya where there's flooding. When it also rains here in Kampala, it also floods. We know the press has been reporting about people are constructing in wetlands, encroachment in forests, and cutting down of massive trees. What's your take about the link between press freedom and the issue of safeguarding the environment, which is the theme this year?
Press freedom. I don't know even how to describe it, because when you talk about it, or when you say something contradictory, somebody say, you are free to say. I'm not supposed to be told that I'm free to say, oh, what I have said, I have gone back home safely. No, because that's what it should be. Okay? You see, it is like buying food at your home, and then you say, don't you know that I have bought food? But if you are the head of the household, what is expected of you? You see? So, the press, probably, we are not about to have that freedom we are talking about as press until we change our character, our behavior, and the way we use even the press itself. Number two, there would be proponents of this, the press people, have also a problem because of the poverty we are talking about. Many of them are compromised. Sometimes stories you ought to see, you don't see, just because it is a story concerning with a bigger investor and is the one who has encroached on the wetland, and he's the biggest advertiser with the press. Okay, while you, the journalist, or the one who has gone to pick the information, you can go and pick the gatekeeper where you bring this information to be released into the public. Will not allow it to go through because it may affect his business, who is your director or the owner of the media house you are working for. But all that said, I think it is also important for the press people, if we want to gain that trust and freedom, to also now be very, very independent. I am saddened in many cases when people come to look for the news, even on bigger events which would be speaking for themselves, but after the newsman or the reporter wants some facilitation from the organizer of the event, that itself kills the whole press freedom.
What do you think is leading to that?
And poverty, simple poverty. Two, the press is also twisted. The media houses, their arms have been twisted, and they are also struggling for survival in a system that is not open, that does not really take well criticism when it has come. Okay, so that is very, very critical. Then I think what we need to do is to appreciate the importance of the fourth estate, as they call it. And unfortunately, we have not. Then the press itself should weed out amongst themselves people who have no ethics of your trade. Because these days, with the digital, with whatever, many people.
Citizen journalism.
You sometimes
everyone wants to be a journalist.
You listen to a discussion, and you want to cry. When you go into the comments section, then you see how people are praising things that do not make any sense at all. That shows you the level and ability of understanding the importance of the press. We have not yet appreciated. Therefore, the press, through your institutions and organization, organize yourselves. Two, let us be principled, so that if you find Imam Kasozi, okay, violating the environment, devastating it, don't just keep quiet because he's going to advertise with you.
Or he's a regular on Spectrum Extra.
Exactly. The moment you do that, then you have undermined the efforts. If you move around, you will see how people have invaded the wetlands, the swamps, and almost now in every swamp that is around near any big city or town, there is a factory of some sort, as if we don't have land. There's a factory of some sort. And I remember when these things began to turn, the president himself said, for those who are already there, don't touch. Let us concentrate on the new ones. That did not help any. I know where I stay, I am neighboring a swamp or a wetland, and I know what is going on there.
All right.
And partly there is a claim that even the government is part of the investment.
All right. Let's hear from Honorable Mkitali.
I want to congratulate.
You are a regular consumer of the press, but also
I want to
a participant in
congratulate
these platforms.
those who have stood out against all odds, to be informative, to be investigative journalism, to be topical, to be balanced, even when at times it is very difficult. But I must also add, about 20 years ago, when the investigative journalism and more so on environment were reporting on Mavida, they were more forceful and forthright than it is today. I remember even when some of us were advocating for Kalangala project, the journalists that time had a lot of energy. I don't know what has happened. The times are not easy, whereas we expected that the information age and the social media would make it easy. At times you find that they are scooped. So they are competing. You know how we moved out from the UBC News to the Gatari Konfuf. So a story comes from nowhere, it is put in the media. Some of them could even be malicious, some of them could be from wrong sources. So there is that mix. But where there is the biggest problem, and where the traditional media houses have been diverted from their traditional role of force state, where they are supposed to make up in terms of standing for the voiceless, providing the makeup of the civic competence, because they are the ones supposed to give information to those who don't have it. You will find that the media houses they work for are sponsored. So how can you write against a sponsor of your media? So there is a lot of censorship. Then we have our politics. Most of these radio stations in Uganda, I think they are over 300. They are owned also by either politicians or some private sector. So the editorial board then becomes very limited. If you are going to speak outside or against your employers, there is also a problem of facilitation. Sometimes I sympathize with the young men in media houses. You are going to look for information, you don't have enough transport allowance, you are given a lift by somebody you are supposed to report against. If you're going to go to Bugoma and you need transport from the sugarcane person, then it's a problem. So it also becomes a problem to for these people to come up and report independently because of lack of facilitation. Now, there is also a lot of money to pay those who can kill stories. Somebody can write a story against you. I've been at these battles. Somebody writes a story who, instead of you being protected, you are the one who is being shown as a problem.
All right.
So the media is not in not very easy times, whereby but for me, my final area in these last 3 years, we have been running the oil and gas, the most expensive, which will cost over $25 billion in this country. Very little reporting is going on who are the contractors in this project, who are the real directors, what are the volumes or the quantum in terms of money, how much taxes are they paying, who are they employing, how much technology transfer. This information is no wonder Parliament is ending up with sometimes very trivial debates, because the topical issues, the agenda setting is to the effect that you cannot even speak against those excesses in some of these areas, because whoever attempted to speak, not even parliamentary forum on oil and gas, not even civil society, I don't want to say it's because there was this what was this civil society funding from, was it from EU? The DGF. From that time, both the media, the civil society is silent. Even the Interreligious Council, which is time to be very active, is quiet.
All
so
right.
the media will also work with civic society,
All right.
with civic competence, but they cannot work alone against all odds when they also have some risks. Like I condemn whoever gets cameras away from the media, those who want to throw them in prison. Those are excesses are not acceptable. We should allow for the media to give information, because when citizens get information, you build civic competence. When you build civic competence, like you see the Spire mode of reporting, it has brought people to explain, are these donations okay? How can we have all this money when we are lacking the basics? So I think it is important. The media plays a very important role. It needs to be defended. It needs to be protected so that the country can get value for money.
Honorable Reso.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank all the people in the press, in the media, both print and electronic, for all that they have done throughout this time. But I want to say something very small, and I share my sentiments with the Honorable Mwachitale, that all he has said and what Haji has said here is all correct. But can I just add on one thing? That, you see, press freedom is part and parcel of a democratization process. In a society or in a country where there is little press freedom, that means institutions of that country are not strong. The democratic institutions of those countries are not strong, and when the democratic institutions of a country are not strong, the cohesive institutions of the country are stronger. And that one goes together with the level of economic development.
All right. Very quickly, let's hear your closing remarks.
Two things. I agree largely with what Honorable Mwachitale has said, that one, press freedom thrives so much in a democratic environment, in an area where almost most of the democratic freedoms are shrinking. It's very hard to imagine, and we are grappling, and it's coupled with the environmental protection. We are grappling under the issue of impunity in this country, that there are people who are not touched, who are beyond the law. That's the most important thing that we're grappling with. All these other things it's just English. That will see its rear head in almost every aspect. There was a time when President Museveni, and those days was always battling with the Monitor, not Daily Monitor, the Monitor. They had their battles with Onyango, Bozan. But then again, and sometimes I think it led to even about 2 or 3 closures. But then again, we never saw what we are seeing now. The Monitor kept on being a check. Monitor kept on being almost the former opposition in absence of an opposition.
All right.
But even what you're talking about, the Spires and all, the social media largely came to break that because it was beyond the realm of the traditional control media. But even then, it's also receiving threats. Online people are receiving threats.
All right.
So we must go back to the basics.
All right.
That how did we get here, where a person's opinion being published against Mwachitale is criminal.
All right. With that, we come to the end of Spectrum Extra. I must thank you very much, my dear panelists, for making time to be here. And thank you, dear listeners, for actually tuning in and contributing to this discussion. I've been your host, Kenneth Lukwago Anderson. Up next, we're going back to studio for great songs and great memories. But from me and the entire crew, we wish you a good weekend.
Wow.